The twin suns burned above the dusty colony world of Arvin. 3. A hot wind carried sand across the empty streets. Between the broken stalls of what used to be a trading market, people hurried to their shelters, trying to avoid the heat. But in the middle of that storm stood a small alien girl. She was barely 10, her skin soft lavender, her hair silver like moonlight. Her big violet eyes searched every human face she saw. Clutching an old toy made of worn fabric, a tiny stuffed creature with one torn ear, she walked from one person to another, her voice trembling but clear. "Are you my father?" Some people laughed, some ignored her, some looked away, but she kept asking again and again. Her voice carried a kind of pain that no child should have. Still she never stopped. Her small feet were covered in dust, her throat dry, but she didn't cry. She had heard stories from her mother, stories of a human who came from the stars long ago. He had fought beside her mother's people when the pirates came. He saved their village, healed the wounded, and before leaving, he had whispered something to her mother under the burning sky. "I'll come back for her." Her mother used to tell her that story every night, until the day she didn't wake up anymore. The war had taken everything, her home, her mother, her people, yet one thing survived. That promise. The little girl believed it with all her heart. She believed her father was still out there among the humans, maybe searching for her too. So she began to travel from world to world, stealing food, hiding on cargo ships, asking the same question on every planet she reached. "Are you my father?" The traders laughed. The soldiers ignored her, but she didn't stop. Each rejection was a knife in her chest, yet she smiled, because her mother had said he would be kind and brave, and he would never leave her alone. Now, on Arvin, 3, she walked through the colony gates as the guards watched her with confused eyes. Her clothes were torn, her small hands shaking. She looked too fragile for such a cruel world. Still she walked straight toward a group of human soldiers resting by their ship. One of them, tall and strong, noticed her first. His name was Captain Reed. His armor shone under the twin suns. Scars across his face told the story of battles long fought. When he saw the girl, something strange stirred inside him. She stopped in front of him, eyes wide, and held up her little toy. "Are you my father?" she asked softly. The soldiers around him went silent. Some chuckled awkwardly. Others turned away, but Reed froze. He couldn't breathe. His eyes locked on that toy. The same toy he had given to an alien woman decades ago, during the last war. He knelt slowly, his hands trembling. The girl looked at him, hope flickering behind her tears. Reed's voice cracked when he spoke. "Where did you get this?" She smiled weakly. "My mother gave it to me," she said. "She told me my father came from the stars." A shock ran through him. The heat, the noise, everything disappeared around him. He remembered her, the alien woman with the silver hair who had saved his life, the one he had promised to return to, the one he thought had died when their village was destroyed. The little girl reached out and touched his cheek. "You came back," she whispered. Reed's throat tightened. He couldn't speak. For the first time in years, the soldier who had seen countless wars felt his eyes burn with tears. The other soldiers stood silently, watching. None of them dared to interrupt. The wind blew dust around them, and for a moment, time itself seemed to stop. The girl clung to him, afraid that if she let go, he might vanish like all the others. Reed wrapped his arms around her carefully, like holding a fragile piece of the past. Somewhere above them, the twin suns sank behind the horizon, and the first stars appeared in the purple sky. The soldier looked up, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm here now." And for the first time since her mother's death, the girl finally smiled. The campfire flickered softly in the middle of the desert night. The human soldiers had fallen silent, watching the strange pair sitting near the flames. Captain Reed sat beside the alien girl, her small hands wrapped around a cup of warm tea. Her silver hair shimmered under the firelight, and her big violet eyes kept staring at him like she was afraid he might disappear if she blinked. Reed couldn't look away. Every detail of her face reminded him of the woman he once knew, the one he left behind on this same planet years ago. The memories he had buried under years of war came rushing back. He had been young then, a medic for Earth Command. His ship had crashed during the rebellion, and an alien woman named Lyra had saved him from the raiders. She was gentle but fierce. She taught him her people's language, and they shared weeks together hiding in the mountains until rescue arrived. Before leaving, he had given her that toy, promising to return after the war, but orders changed, wars never stopped, and time erased everything except regret. He had thought she was gone forever, until now, until this little girl appeared before him. The girl looked up at him. "You remember her, don't you?" she whispered. Reed nodded slowly. "Yes," his voice cracked. "I remember everything." She smiled. "Then you are my father," she said simply. Reed's heart twisted. He wanted to say yes, but he hesitated. He needed proof. He needed to know. Before he could speak again, the radio on his wrist beeped sharply. The commanding officer's voice broke through the static. "Captain Reed, report to command. Priority level red." Reed looked at the sleeping girl, then answered quietly. "Understood." He stepped away from the fire, walking toward the ship's comms terminal. When he connected, the face of Admiral Core filled the screen. The man's expression was cold. "Captain, there is a classified mission on Arvin 3, he said. "You are to detain a rogue alien child believed to carry experimental genetic material from Project Helix." Reed froze. "Project Helix," he repeated softly. "That program was shut down decades ago." The Admiral continued. "Apparently not," he said. "The child may have human DNA. Do not make contact until backup arrives." The transmission ended, leaving only the soft hum of static. Reed's pulse quickened. He turned his gaze back toward the fire, where the little girl now slept peacefully. The truth hit him like lightning. The child they wanted was her, the one calling him father. He walked back slowly, his armor heavy, his heart heavier. The girl stirred and looked up at him. "You were gone long time," she said sleepily. Reed forced a smile. "Just checking something." She tilted her head. "You're lying," she said softly. Reed sighed. "You're too smart." She crawled closer, leaning against him. "My mother said my father had kind eyes," she whispered. "Even when he was sad." Reed swallowed hard, tears burning behind his eyes. "She was right," he murmured. The desert wind howled again, carrying sand like whispers of ghosts. In the distance, a ship appeared on the horizon. Earth Command reinforcements. Reed knew they weren't coming to help him. They were coming for her. He stood quickly, scanning the horizon. His soldier's instincts took over. "We have to move," he said. "Now." The girl blinked, confused. "But why?" "Because bad people are coming," he said, kneeling beside her. "And I won't let them take you." She hesitated, then nodded, trusting him completely. He picked her up gently and ran toward the cliffs behind the colony. The alarms from the base echoed through the night, red lights flashing like angry stars. Reed's comm buzzed again. "Captain Reed, you are ordered to stand down." The voice of the Admiral thundered. "You are interfering with Earth Command property." Reed stopped only for a moment, looking down at the girl in his arms. "She's not property," he whispered. "She's my daughter." He turned off the comm and kept running. The sky above them roared as the dropships descended, soldiers spreading across the desert. Reed slipped into a narrow canyon, using his knowledge of the old war paths to stay hidden. The girl looked up at him, eyes shining with tears. "Will they hurt us?" she asked. Reed shook his head. "Not if I can help it." He stopped beneath a rocky arch where the stars glowed brighter than ever. He knelt beside her, brushing the dust from her hair. "Listen," he said softly. "No matter what happens, you keep asking that question, because someday, someone will answer it, and it will be me." She nodded, holding onto his hand tightly. Far behind them, searchlights cut through the darkness. The sound of engines echoed off the rocks. The chase had begun. And under the alien sky, a human soldier carried the one secret Earth had tried to bury, a promise written not in orders or codes, but in love. The canyon stretched for miles under the cold blue light of the alien moons. Captain Reed moved quickly through the narrow paths, his boots crunching against the sand. The little girl clung to his shoulder, her eyes wide as the sound of engines echoed behind them. He knew the dropships were closing in, scanners sweeping the cliffs like hungry beasts. They found a small cave hidden behind a rock fall. Reed pushed through and laid her down gently. The girl shivered, and he wrapped his old jacket around her. "We'll rest here," he whispered. "Just for a moment." She nodded quietly, her silver hair catching the moonlight. "You're not scared," she said. Reed smiled faintly. "I've been scared for a long time," he said. "But right now, I have something worth protecting." Outside, faint red lights flickered on the canyon walls. Search drones. Reed powered down his communicator. Every trace of their signal had to disappear. He checked the weapon on his belt and the data chip hidden in his wrist pad. It contained the classified archives of Project Helix, a file he had secretly accessed moments before running. He replayed the fragments of the file in his mind. The project had started 30 years ago, a secret experiment to merge human DNA with alien genetics. The goal was to create a new generation of beings who could survive any planet and heal from any wound. But something went wrong. The test subjects died, except one, an alien woman named Lyra. Reed felt the air leave his lungs. She had survived because she carried a child. The hybrid was stable. Her child was the key to everything. And now Earth Command wanted her back, not to protect her, but to use her. The girl looked up at him. "Why are they chasing us?" she asked softly. Reed hesitated. "Because you're special," he said. "They think you're dangerous, but they're wrong." She frowned. "My mother said I was a gift." Reed's throat tightened. "She was right," he whispered. "You're the best thing she ever gave to this galaxy." The sound of footsteps echoed outside. Reed pressed a finger to his lips, pulling her close. Through the narrow crack in the rocks, he saw 3 armored soldiers sweeping the area with scanners. He recognized their insignia. Earth Command Special Unit. One of them shouted, "Thermal reading near the ridge." The others moved closer. Reed held his breath, then quietly took a small device from his pouch, a thermal decoy grenade. He threw it into the opposite direction. The grenade activated with a faint hiss, sending a false heat signature across the canyon. The soldiers rushed toward it, weapons ready. Reed used the distraction to slip deeper into the cave, holding the girl's hand. "Stay close to me," he whispered. They followed the tunnel until it opened into a massive underground chamber. The air was cool, and strange bioluminescent plants glowed faintly. The girl gasped in wonder. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Reed smiled tiredly. "This used to be one of their sanctuaries," he said. "Your mother showed me places like this." She looked at him. "You really knew her," she said softly. He nodded. "She saved me when I was broken. She believed in peace between humans and her people. She believed we could be more than enemies." The girl tilted her head. "Then why did humans stop believing?" Reed sighed. "Because it's easier to fear what we don't understand." She reached out and touched his hand gently. "But you don't fear me." He shook his head. "No, never." Suddenly, his wrist pad beeped. A proximity alert. Drones had entered the cave system. Reed's heart raced. He scanned the chamber, searching for an escape route. His eyes caught a faint light on the far side, an old elevator shaft buried in rock. He lifted her again and ran. His armor scraped the walls, sparks flying. Behind them, the sound of metal echoed as drones entered, red sensors glowing like eyes in the dark. Reed fired 2 quick shots. The bullets hit the ceiling, bringing down rocks and dust, blocking the passage. They reached the shaft. The old lift was dead, but Reed spotted a manual ladder leading down. "Hold on tight," he said, sliding into the dark. The girl buried her face in his shoulder, her heartbeat trembling against his chest. They reached the bottom, stepping into a forgotten research bunker. The lights flickered weakly, and on the far wall hung a faded logo, Project Helix. Reed's breath caught. Terminals lined the room, still active after decades. He placed the girl on a chair and began searching through the files. Each holographic screen showed lines of DNA codes, notes, and old video logs. Then one file opened by itself. A hologram flickered to life. It was Lyra, her face calm but tired. She looked directly into the camera. "If you're seeing this," she said softly, "it means our child has survived." Reed froze. The girl stared at the image, eyes wide. Lyra continued, "They will come for her, not because they care, but because they fear her. She carries both hearts, human and ours. She is proof that peace is possible." Her image shimmered, and to the one who promised to return, she whispered, "Protect her, as you once protected me." The hologram faded, leaving silence behind. Reed knelt beside the girl, tears running down his face. "She knew," he whispered. The girl looked at him. "She trusted you," she said. Reed nodded, his voice breaking. "And I won't fail her this time." Outside, the sound of engines thundered again. The cave trembled as heavy dropships landed above. The soldiers had found them. Reed stood, his face hard now. They want a weapon, he said, but I'll show them what a father will do. He checked his weapon and looked at her. Stay behind me, no matter what happens. She nodded, her small hand holding the old toy tightly. The lights flickered, shadows moved, and the final confrontation began beneath the surface of a forgotten world. The air inside the bunker grew heavy with the hum of distant engines. Dust drifted from the ceiling as the tremor of landing craft echoed through the caverns. Captain Reed stood in the flickering blue light of the old terminals, his armor scratched, his hands trembling. The little alien girl sat quietly beside the hologram projector, still clutching her small toy. Her violet eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. Reed looked up at the rusted door ahead. "They found us," he said quietly. The girl's fingers tightened around his sleeve. "Will they take me?" she whispered. Reed shook his head. "Not while I'm breathing." He moved toward an old weapons locker in the corner, prying it open with his knife. Inside were forgotten rifles and a set of shock grenades coated in dust. He loaded one rifle, handed another to her, and smiled softly. "It's too heavy for you," she said. Reed nodded. "Then you just hold on to hope." A distant explosion shook the floor. The main doors of the bunker burst open with a blinding flash, smoke filling the air. Through the haze stepped armored soldiers of Earth Command, their visors glowing red. "Captain Reed." Their commander's voice boomed through a speaker. "Stand down. You are harboring experimental property of Project Helix." Reed's voice echoed back, calm but fierce. "She's not property. She's a child." The soldiers advanced, weapons raised. Reed fired first. The narrow hall blazed with light, bullets slicing through the smoke. Sparks danced off the metal walls. The girl covered her ears, terrified. The battle was brutal. Reed fought like a man possessed, each move precise, each breath a promise. When the smoke cleared, several soldiers lay unconscious, Reed himself bleeding from a cut across his arm. He turned toward the girl. "We have to move deeper," he said. She nodded quickly. Together they ran into the lower chamber where the glowing reactor pulsed with life. The energy core hummed softly, its surface covered with strange alien symbols. Reed stared at it, realizing it was not human technology. "Your mother must have built this," he said. The girl approached it slowly, her hand reaching out. "It feels alive," she whispered. When her fingers touched the surface, light exploded across the room. The reactor flared bright white, streams of energy rising like threads of light. Reed stepped back in awe. The girl floated a few inches above the floor, her silver hair rising like smoke. Her eyes blazed with golden light. "Stop!" the soldiers shouted from the upper platform. They fired, but the bullets dissolved midair, the energy around her bending the metal into harmless dust. Reed shielded his eyes. "What's happening?" he called. The girl's voice sounded older, layered, almost like her mother's. She said, "I was born to heal." The light spread outward, covering the walls. The dead soldiers began to breathe again, wounds closing, broken machines flickered back to life. The entire bunker seemed to awaken. Reed dropped his rifle, stunned. "You're not a weapon," he whispered. "You're a miracle." But the Admiral's voice thundered again through the comms of the approaching troops. "Contain the hybrid at all costs." More dropships descended, heavier fire echoing outside. The girl floated down gently, her energy fading. She looked weak, trembling. "I can't stop it," she said. "They'll hurt you." Reed knelt and took her hand. "Let them try," he said softly. The ground shook violently as missiles struck the canyon above. The bunker ceiling cracked, debris falling like rain. Reed pulled her under the old console. "Hold on," he shouted. When the dust settled, silence filled the air. The command signals had gone quiet. Only static remained. The reinforcements had been destroyed by the energy wave that burst from the core. The bunker was half buried now, glowing faintly under the new starlight breaking through the cracks above. Reed slowly stood, breathing heavily. The girl opened her eyes, weak but smiling. "Did we win?" she asked. Reed looked at her, then at the sky showing through the cracks. "We're still alive," he said. "That's enough for now." He carried her to the surface through the ruined tunnel. The desert stretched wide and silent. Twin moons hung above, painting everything silver. In the distance, the burning remains of the Earth Command ships marked the horizon. The girl leaned against his chest, whispering softly, "Will they come again?" Reed nodded slowly. "They always do," he said. "But next time, we'll be ready." She smiled faintly. "You sound like her." He looked down at her, eyes filled with tired affection. Maybe I finally understand what she meant. The wind moved softly around them, carrying away the scent of fire and dust. Beneath the stars of Arvin, 3, a soldier and a child stood together. The last secret of Project Helix. The proof that humanity's greatest strength was not power, but love. The wreckage of the Earth Command ships still burned across the horizon. Reed and the girl walked through the silent desert under a rising dawn. The wind carried fine silver dust that shimmered in the first light. Every step felt heavier, not because of the distance, but because of the truth he now carried. They found shelter in the remains of an old shuttle half buried in sand. Reed pushed open the hatch and helped her inside. The interior smelled of rust and old oil, but it was safe. He laid her down gently on a makeshift bed of cloth. Her breathing was soft but uneven. She had used too much of her energy to stop the soldiers. Reed opened his wrist pad, connecting to the last working terminal. He accessed the data they had stolen from the bunker. The screen displayed strange patterns, double helix strands mixed with alien runes. "It's not just DNA," he murmured. "It's a code." The girl stirred, her eyes faintly glowing. "My mother told me I carry her message," she whispered. "A voice for both worlds." Reed looked closer. The genetic pattern pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. He played the embedded signal through the ship's old speakers. A soft voice filled the cabin. It was Lyra again, her tone calm, filled with love. "If you're hearing this," her voice said, "then humanity stands at a crossroads. In her blood lies the bridge between species, a cure for the sickness that divides hearts. She is not meant to be controlled, but to remind you what connection truly means." The recording flickered and then shifted into coordinates. Reed's eyes widened. "It's leading us to orbit," he said. "There's a satellite up there still active." Outside, the sun rose higher, glinting off metal fragments scattered across the dunes. Reed checked the fuel cells in the shuttle. Only one was functional, but enough for one short flight. He turned to the girl. "We're leaving this planet," he said. She smiled faintly, to find her voice. Hours later, the old shuttle roared to life, coughing smoke before lifting slowly from the desert floor. The engines screamed as they broke through the thin clouds. Below them, Arvin, 3 shrank into a swirl of sand and blue light. Inside the cockpit, Reed strapped her beside him. Her eyes were wide with awe, staring at the stars beyond the glass. "I've never seen them so close," she whispered. Reed smiled. "They've been waiting for you." The coordinates guided them toward a dark metallic object floating near the planet's orbit. An ancient communication array marked with the insignia of both Earth and Lyra's people. "It's a hybrid station," Reed said softly. "They built it together once." They docked carefully, stepping inside the silent structure. The air smelled cold and still. Holographic symbols flickered along the walls, and in the center stood a large crystal-like device pulsing faintly. The girl approached it slowly, drawn by instinct. "It knows me," she whispered. She placed her hand on the surface, and the entire chamber lit up. Holograms filled the room. Images of humans and aliens standing together, sharing technology, building cities side by side. Lyra's voice spoke once more, echoing through the air. "This is the dream we built before fear destroyed it. My daughter carries both our legacies. Her DNA is the key to heal our division. If humans and my people ever meet again, let her decide our future." Reed stood frozen, his heart a storm of guilt and hope. He realized what this meant. Her body carried a cure, not just biological, but symbolic. It could end the genetic war between their species. But then the alarms blared. The console blinked red. "Incoming transmission. Earth Command Fleet." The Admiral's voice cut through static. "Captain Reed, you have committed treason. Surrender the child or face orbital strike." Reed's jaw tightened. He looked at the girl. "You can't let them use you," he said. She shook her head. "They'll never understand until they feel what she felt." She turned to the glowing crystal. Her veins shimmered gold as the station reacted to her presence. Energy flowed through her like a river of light. The symbols around the chamber changed. forming words in both human and alien language. Unity protocol activated. Reed shouted, "Wait, what are you doing?" She looked back at him with tears in her glowing eyes, finishing what she started. A pulse of energy burst from the station, spreading across orbit, into space, and down to the planet below. The human fleet froze mid-maneuver as their systems overloaded with the signal, not a weapon, but a message. Across every monitor, one phrase appeared in both languages: "We are one heart under different stars." The fleet halted. Silence filled the void. Reed held her tightly as light surrounded them both. When it faded, she collapsed into his arms, breathing faintly. "Did it work?" she whispered. Reed looked out the viewport, watching the human ships slowly power down. "Yes," he said softly. "They're listening." The stars outside flickered like they were whispering back, and somewhere in that infinite silence, the dream of two worlds had begun again. The light faded slowly, leaving the orbiting station floating silent among the stars. The hum of energy subsided, and all that remained was the soft sound of breathing inside the chamber. Captain Reed sat on the cold metal floor, holding the unconscious alien girl in his arms. Her skin glowed faintly. Her silver hair spread like threads of light across his shoulder. Outside, the Earth Command fleet hung still, their engines quiet, their weapons offline. For the first time in decades, the void between humans and aliens was filled not with fire, but with silence, a deep, listening silence. Reed gently placed her on a med pad, his hands shaking. "Stay with me, kid," he whispered. He checked her pulse, slow but steady. Her energy had drained after activating the Unity protocol. He looked around the control room, where holographic displays now showed peaceful images. Human and alien cities rising together, shared skies, children of both races learning side by side. She changed the code, he muttered. She rewrote the whole system. A faint transmission flickered on the main screen. The face of Admiral Core appeared again, but his voice was different now. Softer, uncertain. "Captain Reed," he said. "What did she do?" Reed stood slowly, his armor scratched and scorched. "She showed you what peace looks like," he said, "and you were too blind to imagine it." The Admiral frowned. "The fleet received the same signal. Our systems are locked, all weapons disabled. You've compromised every command unit in orbit." "She compromised nothing," Reed said firmly. "She freed you." The Admiral's eyes shifted. "The Council will never allow her to live. You know that." Reed stepped closer to the screen, his voice low and dangerous. "Then tell your Council they can destroy the message, but they'll never erase what people saw." For a moment, the Admiral said nothing. Then the transmission cut. The screen went dark. Reed exhaled slowly, knowing they were not safe yet. The girl stirred, whispering weakly. "Did they understand?" Reed knelt beside her. "Some did," he said. "That's how change begins." She looked at him, her small hand reaching for his. "You believed me when no one else did," she said. He smiled sadly. "Because you reminded me of what I used to believe in." Alarms began flashing again, not from attack, but from life returning to the station. Power flowed through forgotten corridors. Lights flickered back on. The central core emitted a low hum, projecting a map of nearby systems. Reed looked at it closely, glowing dots connected by lines of light. "These are colonies," he whispered, "old ones." The girl opened her eyes wider. "Mother told me there were safe worlds hidden between stars, places where both kinds lived together before the war." Reed nodded slowly. She wasn't lying. He uploaded the coordinates into the shuttle's system. "We'll find one," he said, "somewhere they can't reach us." Before leaving, he placed his hand on the console. "Thank you, Lyra," he whispered. "You kept your promise." The shuttle detached from the station, drifting away under the quiet stars. Below, the fleet still lingered, motionless, uncertain. Reed kept the ship in the shadow of the orbital ring, hoping the confusion would buy them time. Hours passed. The girl slowly recovered, watching the endless view of stars outside. "They look different now," she said softly. "Brighter," Reed smiled faintly. "That's because they're reflecting hope." Suddenly, a warning light flashed on the console. "Incoming ship detected." Reed's heart skipped. He activated the scanner. One small craft approached at high speed. No weapons active. The signal code identified it as Earth Command Medical Unit. He prepared for battle, but instead of firing, the small ship transmitted a message. Captain Reed. Came the voice of a young officer, trembling. The fleet has refused orders to attack. The crew saw the message. Sir, they're calling her the Star Child. They want to meet her. Reed stared at the console in disbelief. The girl smiled weakly. They're listening. He opened the channel. Tell them the war's over, he said. Tell them she proved what it means to be human. The officer's voice cracked. Understood, sir. The transmission ended, and for a brief, fragile moment, Reed allowed himself to believe that peace might truly begin. He turned toward the girl, who now sat upright, her eyes filled with light again. What now? She asked. Reed smiled. Now we go where no one owns the stars. The shuttle turned slowly toward the distant cluster of unknown worlds. The engines flared, sending a trail of silver light across the darkness. Behind them, Earth's fleet began to move, not in pursuit, but in silent formation, watching the ship that carried the child who had changed everything. As the stars stretched ahead, Reed whispered softly. You asked every human the same question, he said. And now, maybe, the whole galaxy finally has an answer. The girl smiled and rested her head on his shoulder. I just wanted to find my father, she murmured. And you did, he replied quietly. But you also found something bigger, a family across the stars. The engines glowed brighter as they vanished into the light, leaving behind the first dawn of a new age between worlds. The shuttle drifted through the void, crossing the borders of forgotten space. Captain Reed sat in silence, watching the girl sleep beside him. Her silver hair glowed faintly under the soft cabin light, and for the first time in years, peace filled his chest. He had spent half his life fighting wars, but now, because of her, he finally understood what they had all been fighting for. Below them stretched the network of lost colonies, places wiped from star charts after the first galactic conflict. Reed guided the shuttle toward one marked Eden's Wake, a world once abandoned, now reborn with life. When they entered its orbit, the clouds parted to reveal green continents, silver oceans, and floating cities shining under twin moons. The girl pressed her face against the viewport. It's beautiful, she whispered. Reed smiled softly. It's a new beginning. They landed on the outskirts of a settlement surrounded by tall trees glowing with blue light. The people who emerged were both human and alien, living together without uniforms or flags. Reed stepped out cautiously, his armor dusty, his rifle lowered. Beside him, the girl held his hand tightly. A woman approached them, her features a blend of both species, bright human eyes, pale lavender skin. She looked at the child and gasped. Is it true? She asked. You're the one who sent the message. The girl nodded shyly. My mother told me to speak for both hearts. The woman knelt, tears in her eyes. Then welcome home, little one, she said. Around them, more people gathered, whispering in awe. Some reached out to touch the girl's hand, as if she were light made flesh. For weeks they stayed on that world. The settlement grew with new arrivals, both alien and human, refugees who had escaped endless wars. Drawn by the signal of unity, Reed repaired ships, taught children how to survive, and for the first time he smiled without guilt. The girl spent her days learning, laughing, sometimes standing under the stars, asking questions only she could ask. But peace never came without shadow. One evening, Reed received a hidden transmission. It was Admiral Core again. His voice was weary, no longer filled with command. Reed, he said. The council has fallen. The people have seen her message. Colonies are refusing orders. They're calling it the Helix Awakening. Reed listened silently. The Admiral continued. You were right. She changed everything. Humanity can't go back now. Then maybe it's time we go forward, Reed replied. The Admiral smiled faintly. Perhaps that's what being human means. The line went dead, and with it, the last echo of the old world faded. Later that night, Reed found the girl sitting by the lake. The reflection of the moons shimmered in her violet eyes. You know, he said softly, sitting beside her. You never asked me that question again. She looked up at him, smiling gently. Because I already know. He laughed quietly. And what's your answer? She leaned against him. You're my father, not because of blood, but because you stayed. Reed felt a warmth spread through his chest, the kind he thought war had erased forever. Then I guess I finally kept my promise, he said. The girl looked at the stars, her voice small and full of wonder. Do you think they'll stop fighting? Reed followed her gaze, the sky filled with countless worlds, each now receiving her signal. Maybe not today, he said. But you gave them something no weapon ever could, a reason to try. A soft wind rustled the glowing leaves around them. The settlement lights flickered in harmony with the stars above, and for a moment, it felt like the whole galaxy was breathing together. Years later, stories of the Star Child spread from planet to planet. Some called her a myth, others a miracle. They said she carried a voice that once stopped a war, a child who asked one question that made all of humanity look at itself again. And when children from both species played together under alien suns, they sometimes looked to the sky and whispered her question, "Are you my father?" Not out of loss, but out of belonging. Because now, everyone knew the answer. They were all connected, all part of one story, one heart, one family under the same endless stars. As dawn rose over Eden's wake, Captain Reed stood beside the grown girl, no longer lost, no longer searching. Her voice carried softly through the wind. "Thank you for finding me." He smiled. "No," he said gently. "You found us." And far above, among the stars that once watched humanity burn, a new light shone. A promise kept, a future born from a child's question. The child who united the stars.